Party people, what's good, baby? Episode 3. My co-host, Danny Vietti here, but my co-host, Mr. Bill Middlebrooks, right? Because we can't use names right now because of this lockout situation. And you were part of the MLB Players Union. I don't know if I can call you by your real name, Mr. Bill Middlebrooks.
Billy Mids.
Billy Mid. You had an alias when you were playing for the Red Sox at your hotels, but I don't think we can appropriately talk about your hotel alias, can we?
I can. I had a couple throughout the year. Raymond Reddington was one from Blacklist. I don't know if you've seen the show.
Yeah.
And then the other one was first name Mike, last name was Oxlong, Oxlong. Can you say that?
Mike Oxlong.
Is it? Good for you, bud.
Jesus Christ. Okay, let me ask you this before we move on. We have a lot to get to, but before we're going to talk lockout. We're talking grades. It's first round of grades because free agency, Carlos Correa is still out there. Chris Bryant's still out there. So we're just going to do a first round of grades. But let me ask you this. Did you actually have a bunch of people like go up to your hotel and be like, which room is David Ortiz's? Which room is Will Middlebrooks? Like, did you have groupies?
No, the security is pretty tight. There's a ton of people out front that want stuff signed, card dealers, stuff like that. They just want stuff signed. But people will call when they know teams are in town. There's like 2 hotels that teams stay at all the time. So people know. So like church groups will call for donations and like all kinds of weird stuff. But they'll just call and be like, can I speak to so-and-so? And most of the time they don't. Hotels will be like, yep, putting you through. Mm-hmm. So that's why a lot of people did aliases. I didn't really need one. I wasn't famous, but it was just fun.
Fair enough. Schmill Middlebrooks. Shout out to Brian Morelli and Brett Piper. They both tweeted out that we were part of their top 5 podcasts for 2021 Wrapped. Spotify released their Spotify Wrapped of the year, which basically organizes all your favorite songs, albums, podcasts, and we were on your guys' top 5. So if you haven't already, tweet at us at Wake and Rake Pod, share us on Instagram, Twitter, we're on TikTok, YouTube, every Facebook. I guess Facebook's still a thing, right? Meta.
Yeah.
It's still a
platform. I just know I was fixing my hat and I had full on like sweaty pits right now. I just came in from a workout.
Oh, there it was. You were just waiting for me to say, hey, you worked out today? You were just
I just
wanted to drop that
in there. I just figured you would clip this and make fun of me on social media because anytime I do something like looking at my chain or like blowing my nose or something, you always clip it. So I was fixing my hat and I went, oh wow, I got sweaty pits. He's gonna blow me up about that. So I just figured I'd put it out there that I was doing a full-on beach workout in someone's garage, and that's why. Next.
Lockout at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday. The CBA collective bargaining agreement, which is a negotiated record that governs almost every aspect of the working relationship between Major League Baseball players and team owners, it expired. So less than 2 hours prior to that deadline, however, owners voted to unanimously force a work stoppage. So before the deadline came, they said, enough of this shit. We're having a stoppage. We're having a lockout. So baseball will now endure a work stoppage for the first time since the players' strike of 1994, 1995. And I was -2 years old.
Wow. I was 6.
I was not born yet.
I was barely born. 6 years old.
Your thoughts?
It was inevitable. We knew it was coming. They didn't have enough time to get through the full list of points and bullets that they need to agree on to create the new CBA. So this was inevitable. We knew after 2020 dealing with COVID and all of that mess between ownership and the players union, we knew there would be a lockout. It sounds scary because we think of 94, 95 and all the games missed, but we still have 4 months until opening day. We have plenty of time. It will be post Super Bowl probably. There's a good chance it could go until February before we have a full agreement, but we will have baseball next year. And I think, honestly, the pandemic helped because teams did lose money. Now they cried poor, which they weren't, which we don't have to get into that, but it did help because a lot of teams did lose money. So they don't need to, we need a full season next year. The owners need a full season next year. There's a lot of points we got to hit on. the easiest of the bunch would be the universal DH. I think both sides fully agree that there needs to be a universal DH. You were a pitcher. How do you feel about universal DH? And then I'll talk.
Yeah, can I just give you a couple numbers before I add on to this point? Yeah. Pitchers last season, they combined for 4,195 at-bats. Mm-hmm. This is both the American League and the National League. It also includes a guy named Shohei Ohtani, who just happens to do both. Yeah. 4,195 at-bats, 461 hits. That is a combined 110 batting average. These are pitchers. They combined for 17 long balls, 2,135 strikeouts out of 4,195 at-bats. That is a 50.8% strikeout percentage. And of course, I don't have the bunting stats because nobody gives a shit about bunting stats. But, so they're either striking out half the time or they're laying down a sacrifice bunt. But you know what? It's all part of the strategy, Brooksy.
Yeah. No.
So
for sure.
If that gives you any indication of where I stand on the universal DH, I cannot hit. There are very few people that can do both sides. We were talking about this the other day. When you're at practice, every swing you take, if you're a two-way player, every swing you take is one less ball that you're throwing out in the outfield, playing with grips. Every ball that you throw out in the outfield, you're playing with grips. You're getting better. You work on your arm slot, whatever it may be. That's one less swing that you might not get in the cage. That's why it's so rare what Shohei Ohtani did this season. Yeah. So pitchers cannot hit. Let's stop fighting this fight. It's great. It's rare when Bartolo Colon hits a home run. It's incredible, but it's so few and far between that we're sacrificing good play for one monumental moment that happens once every 10 years.
And people are talking, well, baseball's boring. Well, yeah. Let's throw in a guy that hits 30 homers instead of a pitcher, and it'll be way less boring. Now, I do love NL baseball. I like the managerial style. I like the double switches. When you're in the 8-hole, I played the National League. When you're in the 8-hole, you're like, man, are they going to pitch around me? Are they going to pitch to me? Like it's cat and mouse, it's chess. And you really have to be a step ahead, especially as a manager. So I do like that aspect of it. But when in the grand scheme of things, universal DH is the way to go. It will help growth of the game. It'll help. And let me be honest with you. There's only a handful of pitchers that actually want to hit. Guys go out and throw 20 pitches, which nowadays it's max effort. They're exhausted. They need to go sit down for a few minutes. They don't want to go run the bases. They don't want to have to go stand in the box and a guy throwing 100. They don't want to get hit by a pitch. They want to go sit down, chill out, talk to their catcher about next inning, talk to the pitching coach, go about and focus on their job. That's why you see so many guys go up there and not take a bat off their shoulder because they don't care.
Tack on.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
No, but, I'm totally with you there. So universal DH is one point that they're, maybe not going back and forth on. I think they're still working out what the format's going to be exactly. Because what the owners want out of this deal, and this has to do with universal DH, whenever the players want something, the owners want something in return, vice versa. So what the owners would want in return is an expanded playoff. And we saw an expanded playoff in 2020 during the COVID-riddled season. And right now, this is according to ESPN's Jesse Rogers. This is the format, reportedly, that the league has floated to the MLBPA. It would be 7 teams from each league make the postseason. Right now, it is what, 5?
5.
Plus the 3 division winners plus the 2 wild card teams. Teams with the best record in each league get wild card round buys. 2 other division winners, stay with me, Brooksy. 2 other division winners and top wildcard team hosts, all games of a 3-game series in a wildcard round. 2 other division winners get to pick their wildcard round opponents from 3 other wildcard teams, and 3 series winners and team with a bye advance to a division round. I know it's very complicated. I know a lot of words. You're lost.
That's how I feel about it.
Key points. Division winners would get to pick their wildcard round opponents. That's interesting. Because you're incentivizing winning.
I don't like it.
It's incentivizing the regular season. This is a reported proposal from the league to the MLBP. It has not.
Here's my angle. I hate it because it means teams don't have to spend as much money to get in the playoffs. They don't have to go get the best players to be in the playoffs. We watched the Astros in 2020 be under 500 and make the postseason and almost get to the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how it should be. because anybody can win a World Series if they just get in.
Yeah, the Atlanta Braves had the 12th best record this last year, and they won the World Series.
I mean, think of the Nationals when they won it in 19.
Yep.
You just have to get in. It doesn't matter what your record is. It doesn't matter what you do the whole season. I don't like it.
Counterpoint.
I don't like it.
Counterpoint. Major League
guys,
Baseball.
They're not going to go out. Well, go ahead, please.
Major League Baseball has the fewest amount of teams that makes the playoffs in the 4 major professional sports. Football, they expanded their playoff. They have, I think it's 7 teams, 8 teams. They have 32 teams total. I think 7 teams from each conference make it. 8 teams from each conference make it in the NBA. And in the NHL, I believe it is also 8 teams. So point being, Major League Baseball has, I know what you're saying. You want to incentivize winning, having fewer teams make a playoff. But at the same time, Major League Baseball is alone on an island in regards to how few teams do actually make the postseason compared to the 4 major North American sports.
Correct. Well, I will say this. While I don't like the expanded system for the postseason, I do think it would be good for fan bases. I think it would be good for guys like Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout and guys like that who haven't been able to get to the postseason, for us to see certain star players in the spotlight that we are not used to seeing. I do like that aspect of it. But in the grand scheme of things, I think it hurts free agency. I think it hurts what owners want to pay players, because they don't have to overpay to get the best players, because they don't need the best players to get to the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, I think if that's what they want, then I think we see a salary floor.
I hope so, man. That's what the players are fighting for.
I mean, there's a lot. So we're looking at salary floor, and all this ends up coming back to really just teams, and you already said the word, disincentives to competition, right? I mean, it's been a problem, not just for the players, but for the sport in general. Teams tanking, teams not competing because they don't want to spend money, because they can't get to the playoffs, because they can't compete with the big boys. So they just don't bring up anybody that makes more than $2 million. That's unfair to your fans. That's unfair to your team. You have really good players in AAA. Maybe you don't want to bring up. Now we're looking into service time manipulation.
Yeah.
And the way they grade players now with the rise in analytics and the new evaluation models, the way that they grade players, it's an issue. So I have some buddies that are on the executive board for the players union. These are players. Now, I was a player rep for 3 years. That's not
you
what
got sources.
I have sources. I will not tell you names unless they're aliases, which you will never find out.
Schmidt.
But I will just say this before we dig any deeper into all this crap. Be careful what you read. Be careful what comes out of Rob Manfred's mouth. Do not forget that Rob Manfred works for the 30 owners of every team in baseball, not the other way around, which you would think, but he works for them. He takes the fall with every decision. He takes flack for the decisions made, not the owners. You look at the change in baseballs this year without telling the players. Well, they own Rawlings. That didn't really go public when they bought Rawlings a few years ago. But it's because now they can. How many other times have they done this? It's just getting real sketchy, man.
You
just
saw
be careful what you believe or what you read and listen to that comes out of Rob Manfred's mouth. It's all a tactic. It's all to make it seem like it's the player's fault, when really at the end of the day, I'll give you a quick example, and then I'll let you continue with the questions. But one of the topics is free agency. Right. And right now it takes you 6 years to become a free agent. Rob Manfred came out and said, well, the union made a proposal to move it to 5 years. I talked to my guys at the union. One of them is a very close friend of mine. He would be yes me. There was 0 proposals sent to MLB to change free agency to 5 years. There was not one. Rob Manfred said that.
Rob, what about the union's proposals was bad for the sport, bad for fans, and bad for competitive balance?
Let's take 5-year free agency. I think that we already have teams in smaller markets that struggle to compete. Shortening the period of time that they control players makes it even harder for them to compete. It's also bad for fans in those markets. The most negative reaction we have is when a player leaves via free agency. We don't see that making it available earlier. We don't see that as a positive. Taking $100 million away from teams that are already struggling to put a competitive product on the field, I don't see how that's helpful.
Because he thinks that's what the players want. Mm-hmm. He said publicly that that was one of the proposals.
Just pulling stuff out of his ass.
Which is completely false, which blows my mind. Like, just careful what you read. Just know that everything right now is a tactic, and the amount of power that social media has to form people's minds and opinions on things, they know that. Mm-hmm. All right. This lockout and the owner's tactics here, it's a choice by them. This is out of the union's control. The union can't control a lockout. Mm-hmm. Ownership and Manfred are the only ones that can do that. And it's making it look like this is the player's fault. But like, there's got the last few years in the last CBA, the pendulum really swung towards the ownership and the league. It's got to swing back. That's just kind of part of it.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're at a standoff between MLBPA and MLB to where it's completely unrecognizable, and we do not resonate with what's going on, because normal people like myself, yourself, we aren't getting paid $20 million a year to play a game of baseball. That's just a fact of the matter is. And on the other side, we're not getting $1 billion in revenue from owning a baseball team.
Right.
Max Scherzer is going to make my salary, and probably his first batter next year, he's going to be making $43.3 million. I've worked it down to the dollar.
Didn't you have a tweet about if he threw the same amount of pitches, it would be like $13,000 a pitch?
$13,000 a pitch, Max Scherzer. He threw it's like 1,300 pitches last year, or 3,100.
Yeah, that's
$13,000 a pitch, man. He's going to make my salary, or pretty close there too. And
mine too.
So point being, the good news is this. Okay, let me start with the bad. Bad news is that it does not resonate. It's not good for baseball. Good news is, if you're looking for some optimism, some glasses half full, is we got 4 months till opening day. There's a lot more optimism, even compared to 2020 when the COVID thing was going on, and not just COVID, but COVID season. And we weren't sure if we were going to get any season. There wasn't as much optimism. There's a lot of positive coming from these negotiations.
The COVID thing was out of our control. This is
correct.
This is just, there's a lot of pride that needs to be swallowed on the ownership side of this, and the player side too. Don't get me wrong. There's stuff on the player side too, but for the most part, everything that I have had conversations with from people with the union that I trust, there's a lot of people over there I don't like and I don't trust on the player side as well, but I choose to talk to the people that I know I can trust their word, mm-hmm. and that have a lot of say over there. What the players want isn't just to make the players more money. It's to protect them. It's to protect the game. Mm-hmm. The owners aren't looking out for the good of the game. They're looking out for themselves. Mm-hmm. Who's looking out for baseball and baseball's future? That's why I had someone tweet me and they're like, "Oh, Max Scherzer came out talking about free agency. Why is he? That's a bad look." No, it's not. You know what his job is as a veteran and a player who has made money? Someone being a free agent after 6 years or before 6 years or whatever it may end up being, whatever the union decides they want, won't affect Max Scherzer. But he's fighting for the younger generation of players because the older generation of players fought for him and his rights to make all this money that he's making. Mm-hmm. So now he's returning the favor. Of course you want free agency earlier. Is it realistic? No, but you have to fight against service time manipulation and all that. Like, young players are more attractive than they've ever been right now. You know that the people in the prime in baseball is getting younger and younger, and it's just because the gap in value. I'm trying to think how to say this. The gap in value and like what they bring to a team and what they make is such a big difference. Like you get a player before they hit free agency, they're making league minimum. Right. I mean, so the whole free agency thing and wanting to change that isn't going to affect the elite of the elite. It's not going to affect the Wander Francos, like the Bryce Harpers, the Tatis Jr. Like it's not going to affect those players because they're going to get extended regardless before they hit free agency. Because if you wait and wait and wait, they're going to be worth $1 billion. It doesn't work that way.
We're talking about the Jeff McNeils of the world.
We're talking about the above average players that will sign $100 million contract, which is a lot of money, but they're not the superstars.
Right.
It doesn't affect them. It affects the middle of the road to the above average player that will play out that 6 years until free agency. That's where it'll affect. And you start, the later you get in your career, you start getting hurt and this and that, and you miss out on opportunities to make money. Trust me, been there. So I don't know. It's just protecting players and their lives.
I really liked what Tony Clark said. So Rob Manfred sent out a letter. And if you're wondering, like, what does this lockout mean exactly? If you've looked at MLB.com or anything Major League Baseball related, they're not allowed to use headshots of players right now. So a bunch of players have changed their profile photos on Twitter, which is hilarious. Tony Clark, head of the MLBPA, he said this about Rob Manfred's letter. He said, quote, "It would have been beneficial to the process to have spent as much time negotiating in the room as it appeared was spent on the letter." Kind of love that. One more thing, and then we can move on because we have a lot of grades to get to. I would love to talk about billionaires versus millionaires for the rest of time for sure. But we got a lot of grades, a lot to get to. But one more thing before we move on. One aspect of the lockout is that players who have recently had surgery or are going through rehab, they cannot use team doctors or team physical therapists, which I find very interesting. So Jameson Tyone shared this out, that he can't use the physical therapist that he has been working with over the past month since he's had his surgery. Similar guys like Mike Clevenger, he's on his rehab assignment. So that's serious stuff. I mean, you work with the same doctors, the same physical therapists, and now all of a sudden you have to change gears and you have to find new guys to work with on a day-to-day basis.
It does suck, but let me tell you, these teams plan for this. So I guarantee they have outside sources. They have doctors. They have PT places that players can go that aren't related to the organization. They thought this out. We knew this was coming. This didn't sneak up on anyone. It sucks that he can't be at the facility in Tampa or wherever he wants to be, wherever a lot of the therapists are at the spring training complex. So that would be Tampa. Minor leaguers, however, can stay there because minor leaguers aren't protected. They don't have a players union. There's no CBA. There's none of that, which we don't have to get into that. It sucks. But the one good thing is, like, there's a lot of strength camps and, they hold a lot of camps for prospects in the off season, make sure they're getting their workouts in, bring them in and evaluate their progress and this and that, make sure their weight's up. And where they are physically is where they need to be. So, but the minor leaguers can come in. Yeah. But the fact that the big leaguers can't come in and like you said, that not being able to get that rehab with your therapist, the guy who you've been rehabbing Tommy John with, or whatever it may be the past few months, that sucks. But teams plan for it. They knew this was coming. They already had stuff set up. I don't think that's going to end up being that big of a deal.
Free agency is going to be put on hold because of this lockout too. But we had some big time names, big time superstars sign.
Let me just say,
massive contracts, bro.
Massive. Let me just say, if you had told me a couple months ago or asked me, how do you feel about there being like a free agent deadline? I would have been like, get the hell out of here. It's stupid.
Right.
That was awesome. The fans were into it.
Yeah.
It's off season. No one's talking about baseball. Normally, we're this and that about big signings, but with the looming lockout, it was kind of fun.
Did you hear the conundrum that Justin Verlander is in now?
Yeah, it wasn't official.
Yeah. So Justin
He signed like
Verlander,
a $50 million deal, right?
And-
or
and
he
he
was
got-
going to. Yeah.
right. So he hasn't done his physical yet. So technically the deal's just kind of floating.
Yeah, it's in limbo.
Yeah. Strange.
It is strange.
So teams have committed $1.7 billion
That's it.
for agents. And by the way, I want to hit this point too. Not a free agent, but Wander Franco signed a $200 million contract nearly. It depends on incentives, and he's got some bonuses involved there too. Basically, a $200 million contract for Wander Franco from the Tampa Bay Rays. The Tampa Bay Rays,
bro.
The Tampa Bay Rays that claim they are a poor organization that cannot afford big-time players, similar to the Oakland A's. I think the only team in baseball that can really claim that they're a poor team is maybe the Kansas City Royals and the Miami Marlins. Other than those two, they have money. So
I have a theory, and I just kind of thought about it. We know they don't like spending money, but what if they are predicting a salary floor? So they're just thinking, we'd rather invest in one player that kind of go all in on a guy that we know is going to be a stud to take a big chunk of that. And then we just kind of continue to play Rays baseball.
That's, you know what? I didn't think about it from that perspective. You might be right.
Just a thought.
Yeah, just a thought.
I mean, if you're going to go in on a guy, I mean, that's the guy. I mean, how long was the deal?
10 years? If I'm not 12 years?
10? Yeah. So, I mean, he'll hit free agency at like 30, 31 years old.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Acuna signed a 10-year deal. It was 12 years.
That's robbery, by the way.
No. Okay. Acuna was 10. Franco
10 for 100, wasn't it?
10 for 100 for Acuna. Absolute steal for Atlanta. Acuna was 10 years. Franco was 12. Tatis was 14. Bobby Bonilla is going to get paid after all those contracts have already expired.
Yeah.
2035, baby.
That's nuts, dude. That's when I was rehabbing in Philly. Bobby Bonilla's son was in the Orioles organization. He was a left-handed pitcher that threw gas. Sarasota was right down the road. I was rehabbing with some young kids in Clearwater who were friends with them. So we would always play like video games online. And then I met, because I'm just rehabbing. I've rehabbed, go back to the hotel, play video games, hang out with the 22-year-olds. And there's nothing else to do. This is when Fortnite was hot. So I was trying to play Fortnite with the kids. I'm awful at those kind of video games, but it was fun. But I got their buddies with them. We played all the time, and we met up for lunch a few times. Great kid. I wanted to ask so bad about the contract, but I didn't do it.
I just want to see you hanging out with a bunch of 20-year-olds, because it's basically what this podcast is.
I'm a chameleon. I fit in wherever.
Yeah. Grades. I mentioned teams that have committed $1.7 billion in free agents. I want to start with Corey Seager.
I want you to know that this is raw. Like, I haven't given these grades. I'm going to think about it like as soon as you give it to me. When you told me the names, I wrote down the names.
Yeah.
No, I wrote down one grade.
Okay. Corey Seager, 10 years, $325 million, just a bit shy in total value of Francisco Lindor and Fernando Tatis Jr. 10 years to Texas. Texas, a team that is rebuilding. I think it's fair to say that they're rebuilding, and they're at least probably a year away from truly competing. Your grade for the deal. And by the way, you asked a really good question. I said, let's do a grades episode. And you said, from what perspective? And that kind of took me back. Like, that's a damn good question. Are we talking about the team's perspective, the player's perspective? Corey Seager, $325 million. That's an A+ for him.
Yeah, he's like, oh, fucking
so
A++.
we're talking about our objective.
Yeah. So mine for Corey Seager, I love Corey Seager. He's a good dude, good teammate. He's just kind of quiet, confidence guy.
Yep.
And a damn good player, especially in big games. We've seen him really good in the postseason for a couple of years. But I think overall, I give it a B. I think it's a massive overpay.
Agreed.
I think a team like Texas, who lost 102 games last year, is in a position to spend a lot of money, but they are going to have to overpay guys to take them away from winning ball clubs and to outbid winning ball clubs, because teams aren't going to go to that type of organization unless they offer them a big chunk more than someone else. So they maybe graded him at like 280, but they knew they were going to have to do 40 to 50 more to take him away from the Dodgers. So that's why we see an overpay, and good for him. I'm happy for him. I love seeing players get broke off like that.
Yep.
But I'm going to give it a B because I don't think he is that elite player. I think he's right there. I think he's just under it, but he's just not healthy enough to be that guy. He doesn't play 150 plus games every year. We're seeing 350 at bats every year. That's not going to do it. You need 550, 600 at bats out of the guys making that money. Who says he doesn't do it the next 10 years? I've been over there. I played at Texas. They have the same medical group, same training staff there. Great. They do a great job. I think they take care of players. It's going to be, they're not going to be playing in 110 degrees in Texas. They have that nice new stadium. So I think he's going to be all right. And he's got a pretty good, I know you're going to ask me next about his double play partner.
Well, can I give my grade? Am I a part of this podcast? Do you care about my thoughts?
I thought you were just the editor, but go ahead.
No, I agree with you. I gave an A minus.
Kidding.
I gave an A minus. That was fucked up, by the way. I gave an A minus because I agree it's an overpay. And it's not to criticize Texas for overpaying. Like, I'm giving them credit for overpaying because they had to do what they have to do. But the fact of the matter is they spent $325 million on a guy that, like you just said, has been injured in his past. One little factoid before you continue on. Corey Seager, before 2021, because they played so many playoff games in Globe Life Park, Corey Seager was the Parks leader in home runs coming into the 2021 season.
I know, that was pretty cool. Probably why they signed him.
Yeah.
All right, who's next?
Double playmate Marcus Semien. He too is going to the Texas Rangers, and he too got paid. How about a 7-year, $175 million? Very cool for Marcus Semien because the A's, they denied him that qualifying offer just a year ago. And so he basically bet on himself. He had to change positions because he went to Toronto, Bo Bichette at shortstop. He had to change positions to second base. And he set a record for home runs in a single season by a second baseman. Marcus Semien, 7 years, 175, going to Texas, right nearby or right next to Corey Seager, right down the middle in the infield.
Yeah, I give him an A here. I think all around, this is a good deal for everybody. Fans are going to love him. Marcus Semien is he has, comfort in knowing that he's going to play there the rest of his career, and he's going to make $175 million. By the way, in LA, going back to Seager, LA would have had to pay him $410 million to match what he's going to make in Texas because of the income tax there. Sorry, I can't speak English.
Don't remind me, a California native over here.
Oh, I played in San Diego. I totally understand, but it's an A. This is a good player. Like you said, he changed positions once he went. He fixed his defense at short. He used to be awful at short, and he would just hit. He would knock in more than he let in, so it was fine. But then it started to become a problem. He made some changes. He got better. He moved to second and got even better. I like this combination up the middle. I think they fit the mold of the Texas Rangers, which is like the quiet confidence. Like I said, blue collar, work hard. Like that's what the fans like there. I'm from there. I grew up a Rangers fan, so I'm pretty fired up for them. And they're not done. They're going to make more moves. They're going to make bigger splash. They need to get some pitching. They have some young players over there that could be good, but they still have a lot of moves to make to be in the discussion to compete in that division.
Yeah, John Gray is a good start for the pitching front. They were able to get into a really good arm from Colorado, one of the best wipeout sliders in baseball. I gave Marcus Semien that signing a B because he's going to be 38 years old when that 7-year contract expires. That's old for a middle infielder. That's aging. It's not to say that Semien isn't a great player, but that worries me a little bit. Longer contracts that go deep into your late 30s, that concerns me a little bit. But a good signing, again, another probably an overpay or maybe an over length in contract, but the Texas Rangers had to do what they had to do in order to get these guys. Let's go up to the Puget Sound. Robbie Ray to the Seattle Mariners. This is a big-time signing for Seattle, a team that is looking to compete. Just missed the playoffs last year. They're 2 decades away from their last playoff appearance. Robbie Ray, 5 years, $115 million, the reigning American League Cy Young champion.
I like this sign.
I love it.
I mean,
I love it.
I really like Seattle. I was pulling for him last year. I give it I gotta give it an A. I'm pretty lenient on my grades, but they need a stud. They have Flexen, who's really good.
Yeah.
They have Gonzalez, who was good, but they didn't have that like stud. That's what I was saying. Like if they get to the postseason, like who pitches the wild card game for them? You know,
Logan Gilbert might be their best arm, but he's
He
young.
was a
and he
rookie
doesn't
last
have-
year, though.
That's exactly right. Best stuff is what I'm kind of referring
For
to.
sure.
At least
Big kid,
before
throws hard. I agree. But we just named 4 guys. Chris Flexen was really good for them, too.
he was. He
Especially
scored.
on like the betting side of things. Like he was one of the better pitchers on the money line.
Mhm.
He was like top 3 all year, I'm pretty sure. He was really good. But that's away from the point. Robbie Ray has earned the right to be an ace.
Mhm.
He's tightest uni in the league. My God, man. He wears a medium out there, but it doesn't matter when you shove like that. He's turned his career around. Almost like how Seattle has turned their organization around the past couple years.
Yep.
I think it's a perfect match. Watch out for Seattle in that division.
Yeah, Seattle in 2 weeks added an all-star second baseman and Adam Frazier. They traded or acquired him via trade from San Diego, and then they got the Cy Young in Robbie Ray. So 2 really good moves. I gave it an
They
A+.
need some. They need offense. They played defense well.
Bullpen's nasty.
Bullpen's nasty. They need offense. They were one of the worst offense in the league. They were just clutch. Remember the clutch stat? They were like far and beyond everyone.
Unreal.
They had
Three
they
times.
finished the year at like a 9 and an average, or the best teams in the league were at like 3 something.
Yeah.
So they got hits when they needed to, but you can't bank on that and consistently do that, which they did in one season. But they need to make a couple splashes offensively, get some big boppers in there because they have some guys that can play, they can run, make plays. Exciting players, JP Crawford, Haniger, those I love those players.
Yeah.
Frank, what's his name? Ty France.
Hi, France. Stud.
All right.
Super utility.
Yeah. Talking's hard sometimes, but they have some exciting players that are fun to watch that could end up being household names.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for them.
Yeah, I compare them to San Diego a lot, timeline-wise. They have young studs coming up, Julio Rodriguez, Kalenic. He had a really strong last month of the season last year. They're on a similar timeline as San Diego was, but what Seattle hasn't done yet is they haven't signed that Manny Machado yet. They need a Trevor Story, someone like that. They need a star to sit next to their young studs and kind of lead them, like similar to what Manny Machado has done in San Diego, because they're going to have guys like Kalenic, Rodriguez, comparable. I'm not saying they're Fernando Tatis Jr., but comparable top prospects. You need a guy. You need a guy. They're on a similar trajectory, timeline-wise, both historically losing franchises, but they're turning a corner, and that's why I think they need to land a star, someone like a Trevor Story.
So while we're on that subject, and then we can get back to our grades, where do you think what happens with Carlos Correa?
The market has shrunk significantly.
Right. So now I don't think there's any teams in there that are going to pay him the Seager type contract.
Houston appears to be his best option right now.
But they offered him a 175, right?
That's exactly right. So
that's Marcus Semien. Well, almost. It's more AAV. Obviously, it's 2 less years.
The Dodgers have the money.
You know what I think Correa could do? I mean, I don't know if he's going to get what he wants, but what if he goes like 2 years, 75?
That's not what he wants, though.
It's not what he wants, but it could open up the. Yeah, but do you take a bet on yourself, or
right?
How old is he? 24.
He's been injury prone in his career.
He has, but he's also been a star.
He's a stud, no doubt. It's just the market is what it is, you know. Do the Yankees take a stab at? I think he'd be a great fit for the Yankees, but there's a report out there that supposedly, not my words, this is according to the report, is that Carlos Correa is not exactly well liked among clubhouses around the league.
Well, no shit, Danny. You remember what happened in 2018?
No, some trash can thing. I don't know.
17, 18, however long it went on. Yeah, no shit. The Yankees are one of the teams. The Dodgers are one of the teams. But do they get over that? They got to get over it, right? If they're your team, like, you're going to boo him. They're not going to boo him. They're just not going to be like that happy about it until he hits a big homer. Yeah. And walk off. But all right, let's get back to our grades. I was just curious what you thought about that.
Max Scherzer, 3 years, $130 million to the Mets. Your grade.
This is what the Mets needed to do. This is A+ all around. He's one of the best pitchers in the game. I mean, you're putting up. He's a number 2. He's going to be a number 2.
When was the last time Scherzer didn't start on opening day? Probably back to his Tigers days.
Yeah, I mean, this is what the Mets needed to do. What's their rotation going to look like?
I mean,
they lost Thor, they lost Matz. They lost Stroman.
Right. They lost.
They lost the McGill kid who they DFA'd late in the season, and somebody else picked him up. I think the Cubs. I don't remember. He
So
did sign with somebody.
This is according to Fangraphs, which is highly accurate normally.
Yeah.
DeGrom, Scherzer, Taijuan Walker, Carlos Carrasco, and Tyler McGill. It's pretty solid.
Wait, McGill's there. I could have sworn McGill just went somewhere else.
According to Fangraphs, he is.
Hold on. I'm looking it up. It's like Tylor, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Tylor.
Sounds like a guy from Game of Thrones. I could have sworn he went somewhere. I may have been losing my mind. Maybe I dreamt it. Yeah, I'm wrong.
Been drinking too much of that whiskey.
No, I haven't been actually. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I liked him. He's good.
C+ for the signing for Max Scherzer, my friend.
What the fuck?
Max Scherzer had back issues 2 years ago. Max Scherzer had to.
Oh, here comes the old man speech.
I'm not saying he's old. I'm saying he's got.
What did he finish in the Cy Young?
Max Scherzer is a freaking tank. First ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best pitchers we've ever seen.
So you think from last year to this year, he's gonna suck?
He can't. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying all it takes is one back spasm to turn into two back spasms. They're paying him over $1.2 million per start if he makes 30 starts in the season.
Yeah.
If he gets one start, Steve Cohen's spending $1.2 million on a shell start.
Steve Cohen has $1.2 million in his dash tray.
My point is this: that's a lot of money for a guy that has had back issues in his past. That's all I'm saying. So great pitcher, one of the best of our generation, one of the best of all time. Could end up being the difference maker between the Mets and being a true contender. But that said, it's a risk. It is a risk.
What grade did you give Seager?
A-.
Okay, because he had Tommy John and he signed 10 years, 322. Okay.
That was 2 years ago. He had Tommy John. 3 years ago.
He has a history.
Marcus Stroman to the Chicago Cubs. What is your grade for Marcus Stroman? I made my case for Scherzer. I'm letting it go.
I don't even know if I can give a grade on this because I'm so confused by it.
There's a lot
Marcus
of
Stroman
stuff with his contract.
Stroman, friend of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out Shra.
Great dude.
Works his ass off.
He does. Why the Cubs? Like, I don't feel like that's a team that's ready to win anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know Marcus Stroman is going to do whatever is best for him and his family. He loves Chicago, and he's going to go with happiness over other things. But like, you had the opportunity to sign anywhere, really, and go get a chance to go get a ring. And the Cubs are not in a place where they're going to win many games.
Mm-hmm. They're
still kind of they are rebuilding. It's him, Kyle Hendricks, and I don't know anyone else in their rotation. And their position players are made up of a ton of young guys. Unless they make some big moves here soon, it's going to be another rough season in Chicago. What were the numbers on the sign? What was the contract?
Again, very, very incentive based.
Wasn't it $70 million?
3 years, 71 mil, but it depends on where he finishes numbers wise. He has some options involved, player option.
Yeah, after the second year, right?
Right. According to Fangraphs, Stroman, Kyle Hendricks.
It's a great contract for him. I give it a B just because he's not gonna like put them over the top. We're not gonna see him in the postseason. Not this year, I don't think, unless they go out and all of a sudden make all these signs after the lockout. They're not gonna be. They're not gonna win the division. They're not gonna be a wild card team.
Mm-hmm.
Even with a 14-team expanded playoff, I don't know if they get in the postseason. So I'm just confused by this one.
So what was your grade for sure?
I'll go B.
Okay, I gave it a B+. Javi Baez, Detroit Tigers. They got their shortstop. A lot of people thought it was going to be Carlos Correa. Instead, 6 years, $140 million for El Mago.
I think he is a difference maker.
Mm-hmm.
I think offensively, defensively, he's a spark plug is what he is. They have a lot of young talent there. He's going to bring the swag. He's going to bring experience. He's going to bring a World Series win. He's going to be big for this team. I mean, I think AJ Hinch, there's a lot of questions. Is Baez a good teammate? Is he too flashy? Is he this and that? I think AJ Hinch is a great manager that kind of hones that in and gets the best out of guys.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a fruit that you can really get a lot of juice out of if you know how to juice it correctly. If you know what I mean. Take that however you like. But there's also, and I'm going to get to this in a minute because we have some least favorite and favorite picks in a minute that we'll get to. But I think this is a really good signing. I like this, and they didn't have to dish out the $300 million to Correa because they're still paying Miggy for a couple more years. I like this. I'll give it an A.
I too gave it an A. They needed a shortstop. They needed a star in Detroit. They're on the back end of this rebuild. I mean, they're almost to the finish line of this rebuild. They're right there. I mean, they were third in the American League Central, and they got a guy. And you need a guy.
They overperformed last year, I thought.
Exactly. And
I feel like they sped up their clock by a year and a half.
Exactly. So I too give it an A. Thor headed to SoCal, baby. Noah Syndergaard. You want to talk about an overpay? This, you could certainly make the argument that this was probably an overpay, but a guy that has put up some of the best numbers since he entered the league. A 1-year, $20 million contract to Noah Syndergaard, a guy that has pitched just 2 times since 2019.
Yeah, which is crazy is he turned down the qualifying offer, which I thought he would take and, build his value back up after TJ.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got a little more. I thought that was that's the Angels saying, hey, we kind of know what we haven't had the past few years and we need to add to it. And we're going to take a flyer on you. It's 1 year. It's 20 mil. It's a lot of money for somebody who hasn't pitched. Well, he pitched a little bit last year, but he only threw fastballs in his 2 outings. So that's something to worry about if you're looking at how he's turning over a changeup or that hard slider. How's that elbow going to hold up? But that's not an issue. He'll be fine. This is a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's 1 year. There's not a lot of strings attached to this. If you don't like it, it's done after a year. And they need pitching. They need something behind Shohei. They need more. They need to go get one more guy. But I like this signing a lot. I'll go A on this as well.
That was my point exactly, too. The Angels aren't scared to spend. We can talk about how poor their signings have been in their past, especially with Billy Epler and his inability to acquire pitching. But they've been top 5, top 10 in payroll spending offensively over the last decade. They just haven't made the most of that money. Point being, okay, Noah Syndergaard gets injured again and maybe he doesn't pitch this year. That's a worst case scenario. So what? You lose $20 million. The Angels can plenty afford that. At least you took a chance.
I don't even think injury will be an issue with him. It's like, does he regain his feel for all his pitches? And I think it's been enough time where he will. Yeah,
I gave it an A+, but I was, kind of playing devil's advocate and saying worst case scenario type thing. But best case scenario,
I think it's gonna work out.
He's been one of the best pitchers in the game since he entered the league. So I took an A+. Move on. This is going to be our last segment. Favorite and least favorite move so far. Let's start with your favorite, Brooksy.
My favorite is Baez.
By the way, this could be trade for agents.
Yeah, no, I like Baez. I think
have it your way.
We see a more consistent Javi Baez because one, AJ Hinch, which I said earlier, and what his ability and being one of the managers like Alex Cora, Gabe Kapler, that group where they just get a little bit more out of each of your players. If you can get just a little bit more out of Javi Baez, we're looking at a superstar.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on top of that, one of his good buddies, Miguel Cabrera, one of the best hitters that our game has ever seen. We're seeing the tail end of his career now, so we're kind of forgetting about him. But I played against him in his prime. And when I tell you this is one of the best hitters I've ever seen, it was scary to play third base with him up, knowing he was going to rifle something at me. But he rarely pulled the ball down the line, so I didn't have to worry about it. But I think Miggy makes him a better player. I think Miggy makes him a better teammate because Miggy's one of the best teammates in the game. You don't hear about that much because it's kind of behind closed doors type thing. But talking to guys and buddies who play with him, talk about how much he helps them mentally, preparation wise, how much information he's able to retain about pitchers and their stuff, and how much he passes that along to the young players. Javi Baez, we're going to see him make strides, and he's going to end up being a better player than we thought he would end up being, and he's going to outplay this contract.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to go with Starling Marte. The pure energy, passion that this guy plays with, that's exactly what New York needs. New York's very uptight, as they should be after all the legal issues that they have gone through over the past couple of years, and the culture has not been right in Queens. Starling Marte, regardless of numbers, I could talk about how he had more stolen bases last season than 3 teams, the Diamondbacks, Red Sox, Reds. He had more stolen bases individually than those 3 teams. But numbers aside, he's going to get fans out to the ballpark, and he's exciting. He's fun to watch. He's going to bring an extra bit of energy to a New York team that I think desperately needs that culture change and has been trying to change the culture for years now. I think he's going to help bring that to the table. And I think, too, value-wise, a really good deal in regards to what he ended up getting. So Starling Marte. Where are we at, Starling? There we go. 4 years, $78 million. I think that's a good value deal, and I think it's going to really work out for the New York Mets. Least favorite move. What did you not like?
It's a toss-up between Seager and Stroman. Just because I think Seager, like I said, I love Seager. I love Stroman too.
You gave Seager an A- though, didn't you? Or a B+. You gave Seager a B+.
I gave it a B.
Okay.
I didn't give anything below a B.
Okay.
Because like I said, I love seeing players get paid.
Yeah.
But this is a severe overpay. I'm gonna go Stroman just because I wanted to see him on a contender, and I wanted to see him be that extra piece to maybe the Giants or to Boston,
Seattle,
or stay in New York and one of those teams, like switch over from the Mets to the Yankees to the Pinstripes and push them over the top, because he's that guy who you add behind an ace. And now he's going to a place where he gets to be the ace, but they're not going to win games. I just feel like he has so much to offer to an organization, to a ball club. And I feel like he is not reaching his potential because of where he's playing.
I guess only time will tell, right? I think.
I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I'm wrong, because I love Marcus Stroman. I just really wanted to see him go to a contender. It has nothing to do with his personal decision. This is just me personally wanting to see him in the postseason, because I love his fire. I love his work ethic. I love what he brings every night he's on the mound. And I want to see that postseason. So it's a selfish reason for me not liking that move.
Yeah, no, I hear you there. My least favorite move, I'm going with Corey Kluber to the Rays.
And
it's not as if this is going to
forgot about it.
Completely tank this team. That's not what I'm saying here. But because Corey Kluber was added to the 40-man roster, they had to subtract a player. They subtracted Joey Wendell by shipping him off to Miami. Joey Wendell,
good player,
is an all-star last year. And only the Tampa Bay Rays can, because supposedly before they traded Wendell, the Rays said they were shopping Kiermaier and Wendell. So only the Tampa Bay Rays can say, oh, well, we just added Corey Kluber, a former Cy Young, so we're going to have to get rid of our all-star, either our all-star last year or our 3-time Gold Glove center fielder in Kevin Kiermaier, and they're probably still just as good of a team. Like, that's one of the few,
because they need to stay under $80 million.
That's right. So, but I don't like the subtraction of Joey Wendell. I think his ability to play all around the diamond, whether he's
and you're not going to have to pay him a shit ton of money.
Whether he's starting or a super utility guy, he's very, very.
He's going to sign a 3-year, $40 million deal.
So I think that subtraction. So not necessarily the signing of Kluber, but it's what they had to do in order to sign Kluber. I disagree with that move.
I totally agree with that.
It's tough to criticize what the Tampa Bay Rays do on a day-to-day basis. But that's what I'm doing right now.
They have the recipe. We never understand it, and I never pick them to win the division, and they always do.
We didn't talk about the Gosman signing. We didn't talk about a lot of other smaller deals. I don't want to say Gosman was a smaller deal, but Chris Taylor re-signing with the Dodgers. There was a lot.
I really thought he was going back to Seattle.
I know you did.
I really was on that. I could just picture it, man. It was a good fit, but well, the Dodgers needed to keep him after losing Seager, so.
If you're looking for some entertainment, Brooksy, by the way, this is your formal invitation. I'm going to have a trivia night. All proceeds will be going to Toys for Tots. It's going to be through Zoom/Kahoot. So it's going to be just baseball trivia. It's going to be $5 to enter. All the proceeds will go to Toys for Tots. So I will keep you updated on dates across my social handles, across the Wake and Rake social handles, but that's out there for anybody that is interested.
Why have you not invited me?
This is your formal invite.
Oh, okay. Along with everyone else. I feel so special. I love it here. Is this over yet?
All right, people, until next time.